What's up, my friends, and welcome into the PHLY Phillies podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out with us here as we kickstart our week. Yeah, a little bit of a late start this week here on the PHLY Phillies podcast as we were off on Monday, no show yesterday, so we are kickstarting the Phillies show here in the middle of the week. It's hump day. Happy Wednesday to you, and thank you so much for hanging out with us today. As always, we are broadcasting live from the Xfinity Lounge here at the PHLY studios, and the PHLY Phillies podcast is brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use that promo code above my left shoulder, PHLY 365. Deposit $10, place a bet for $5, and you'll get $200 back in bonus bets, whether your bets win or lose. You find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Hello to you all. Thank you so much for being here. Hello to K-Red, Markel Futz, and everybody else in the chat. And if you're watching afterwards, a hello to you. If you're listening on our audio-only podcasts as well, hello to you. Thank you. Find us however you find us. Pirate it. I don't care. I'm not your dad. I can't tell you what to do. If you want to do it illegally, it is what it is. I didn't say that here just for legal mandate reasons. Anyway, welcome into the PHLY Phillies podcast. And before we get started, I want to let everybody know that it is September. And with September, of course, means cooler months, means postseason baseball is right around the corner. And it also means a super impactful, meaningful grouping that we have, a pairing that we have with our friends over at Big Brother and Big Sister. Every September, Big Brother and Big Sister recognizes the impact of its programming, mentorship, and matches during Big Brother, Big Sister month. So, through the entire month of September, we are encouraging you, if you have a couple extra dollars, I understand finances could be difficult for some at times. It's a difficult world out there. But if you have a couple extra dollars to spend and you're looking to put it towards a good cause, you can always donate to our friends at Big Brother, Big Sister. Your gift ensures that they have spent now 120 years mentoring and leading and guiding the youth of America. They're hoping to spend another 120 years doing it as well. So if you have a couple extra dollars to spend, you can use the donation tab down below, our fundraiser, which is part of our episodes, each of our episodes here at PHLY. We would really appreciate it, and so would Big Brother and Big Sister. So thank you so much for donating and spending a couple dollars for an incredible cause. All right, let's get into it. We have a lot to get into today. Let's take a look at what's coming up on the PHLY Phillies podcast. Today, we're going to start with the game on Monday. No game yesterday. It was a weird schedule. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Was this the best win, individual single win of the 2025 season? I'll tell you why I think it was. On deck, we're going to talk about how this team solves Jose Quintana. Quintana will pitch for the Brewers tonight. He's had the Phillies number for a majority of his career. It'll be his 14th start against the Phillies. How do they solve him, and what makes him so good against the Phils? We'll talk a little bit about one thing that I think the Phillies can do that will benefit them against any team in the postseason. And I'm interested to see how Rob Thompson deploys a specific lineup to do it. And we'll finish off today's show. What are you doing, Framber Valdez? Come on, man. What happened? Why are you doing that to your catcher? We'll talk more about that. And if you haven't seen it, it's a wild story development. He swears it wasn't on purpose, but I don't know, man. Body language and facial expressions tell you otherwise. All right, let's dive into our conversation at hand today, and we're going to start with our Big Deal segment of the day. The Big Deal segment, as always, is brought to you by our friends over at Cherry Hill Mitsubishi. If you're looking for the most affordable 7-passenger SUV in America, CherryHillMitsubishi.com has you covered with the 2025 Mitsubishi Outlander. All right, let's go back to Monday's game. We'll talk about the win over the Brewers. It was a 10-8 win, and to me, it felt like the most gut check, gutsy, team-building, look back on this in October type of fundamental win of the season. We have talked the entire season about not getting too high about series victories and not getting too low about series defeats. And in fact, I think the Phillies did that within a 10-day span over the last couple of series. We go back to the Seattle Mariners series, where the Phillies really outclassed the Mariners just about every which way. They put up a timely offense, bullpen was good, starting pitching was good, and they outclassed the Seattle Mariners for a 3-game sweep. And then they turned around a week later and had all of those things happen to them against the New York Mets at Citi Field. And so the highs and lows, the pendulum swings of back and forth of an entire 162-game season, it's really difficult to have that emotional toll on you for a week stretch where the highs were extremely high and the lows were extremely low, and to find a good balance somewhere in between. So I have to take this with a grain of salt and understanding it's one game over 162, but this did feel like one of the most pressing, important team building type of wins, building block type of wins that you could possibly come up with on Monday afternoon. Because the reality of the situation was the Phillies, much like the Brewers, who had played 18 games in 19 days, the Phillies were in the stretch of playing a ton of games themselves over that same period. And they had gone through the highs and lows of travel and wins and losses and learning about Zach Wheeler being shut down for the remainder of the season, trying to figure out how you're going to structure your bullpen, trying to figure out how you're going to get your offense to click, because as good as they were against Seattle, as rough as they were against the Mets, they then put up a 19 spot against the Braves and then proceeded to score only 7 runs in the final 3 games of that series. 1-2 of 3, but the offense had issues from time to time in that series. There was a lot going against the Phillies, having played a Sunday night baseball game at home and then a Monday afternoon game in Milwaukee. The Phillies could have packed it up and said, we'll try again on Wednesday. We'll try this again on Wednesday. We'll just, whatever. This game is one game. We're going to bag it. We're going to win the next 2, or we'll try our best to win the next 2. And they could have looked the other way and turned this thing off after the 3rd inning. Because the reality was the Phillies were down 3-0 at the end of the 1st. They were down 4-0 at the end of the 2nd. They were down 5-1 at the end of the 4th. And their starting pitcher in the game, Taijuan Walker, wasn't particularly good. He had command issues in the 1st. He needed 32 pitches to get out of that inning. He gave up the leadoff home run. He had exit velocities in the 1st inning alone of 107, 107, 101, and 100, and that was with a couple of outs involved. He also gave up a 94-mile-an-hour double. The Brewers had 4 balls hit that had expected batting averages in that inning alone of 600 or better, and then you get to the 2nd inning. And the leadoff home run by Caleb Durbin, 103 off the bat. He also gave up balls of 97, 100, 103, and 105. The Phillies could have shut this thing down at any point. You could have turned the game off as a fan at any point and enjoyed your extended Labor Day weekend holiday, enjoyed your Monday, your day at the beach, your barbecue, your day at the boardwalk, whatever it might have been. You could have said, forget it, I'll check back in on Wednesday. This was a gut check win for the Phils because they were behind the 8 ball pretty much from the jump. And instead of bagging it, instead of thinking about the fantasy football draft that they were probably going to do on Tuesday's day off, instead of thinking about, it is what it is, we'll come back fresh and rested and returned on Wednesday and beat Quintana and then beat Peralta, which is not an easy task to do, they battled back several times in this game. They made it 4-1. They went down 5-1. They made it 5-3. Then they took a 6-5 lead. The Brewers tied at 6-6. The Phillies took an 8-6 lead in the 8th. Robertson pitches poorly in the 8th, gives the runs back. It's 8-8. And then they score 2 in the 9th to take the 10-8 lead before Yohan Duran shuts the thing down. When we talk about gut check wins, when you talk about staple wins, when you talk about those wins that go on the video at the end of the season, it was a hell of a victory for the Phils. That's the type of win where the voiceover guy, whoever it is, right, in years past, it's been Jimmy Rollins and Ryan Howard, and the voiceover guy says, man, we could have bagged this game, but we didn't. We fought. We scraped and crawled and scratched our way back to a victory, and that was a moral win for us. And that propelled us to a series win. That propelled us 3 games over the Dodgers. That helped us clinch the 2 seed. That helped us clinch the division. That helped us set up our starting rotation for the postseason. This was an unbelievably gutsy win. The Phillies had 5 different guys in this one have multi-hit games. And I think all of them were important. No question about it. But I think the game belongs to 2 players in particular. Let's start with Brandon Marsh. Brandon Marsh was 4 for 5 in this game. He scored twice. He had an RBI. And he was part of an inning that I think maybe was the conductor, maybe was the catalyst to this win. The inning started, innocently enough, with a JT Realmuto hit by pitch. With 2 strikes, by the way. Was hit by a pitch. He gets to first. Brandon Marsh comes up, serves a single into the outfield. A base hit for Marsh moves JT to third. They have runners on the corners with Harrison Bader up. Bader comes in, drives in JT with a base hit, moves Marsh to third. Good base running, sends Marsh from first to third. JT scores. It was a double. I apologize. It was a double from Harrison Bader. JT scores. You've got second and third. And then back-to-back sacrifice flies. Sac fly scores Marsh. Bader advances to third. Next batter with another sac fly scores Harrison Bader. It wasn't a crooked number inning. It wasn't a 5 or a 6 or a 3-run home run or a grand slam or a multi-home run inning. But the productivity that the Phillies got from JT Realmuto down, from the 4 spot down in that inning, was a prime example of what we've talked about. When this team can manufacture runs, they can truly beat anybody in baseball. When this team is playing at its pinnacle, which it felt like they did, because starting pitching wasn't great, David Robertson didn't pitch particularly well, but they picked up. They went like assembly line baseball. They picked each other up. They went station to station, manufactured to manufacture, right? They built the bumper. They built the engine. They built the engine block. They built and then they built the frame of the car, put it all together, and Harrison Bader delivers down the stretch for a big time victory. That felt like a complete team win in a game where your starting pitcher wasn't very good. The expectation for this team come down the stretch in postseason time is that the starting pitching is going to be good. That's how they hang their hat all year. It's how they've done it in the first 6 months of the season, and it's how they're going to do it in the postseason as well. Christopher Sanchez, Jesus Luzardo, Ranger Suarez, you're hoping a bounce back from Aaron Nola. That is how this team is going to have success in the postseason. But that success can only take you so far if your offense doesn't produce. And there's been times this year where the Phillies offense has struggled. Consistency. 3 runs or less, 2 runs or less, 1 run or less. They've done a nice job of winning some of those games to stay afloat. But the reality is this team is going to succeed on the strength of the good pitching paired with timely hitting. That's how good teams succeed. That's how all good teams succeed. It's not just this team. It's not a secret formula, right? This isn't Plankton stealing the Krabby Patty secret formula in SpongeBob. There's no secret to it. It's good pitching and timely hitting. That's how you win in the postseason. That's how the Texas Rangers did it in 2023. That is how the Washington Nationals did it in 2019. It's how the Phillies did it in 2008, and so on and so on and so on. That is how teams win World Series. And the Phillies did it last night, or on Monday night, excuse me. And if they can do that for a 4-week stretch, that's how they're going to succeed in the postseason. The other guy, the success belongs to Harrison Bader. We talked about him yesterday on a video. This guy's been nothing short of incredible for the Phillies since joining the team. On Monday night, 3 for 5, 2 runs scored, 2 doubles, 3 RBI, crucial RBIs down the stretch to help this team win the game. He's hitting .313 since joining the Phillies. He has 6 multi-hit games since joining the Phillies, 4 3-hit nights since becoming a member of the Phillies on July 31st. His defense is impeccable. His base running is solid. Something we'll talk a little bit more about in the next segment, or in the third segment of today's show. This team is better with Harrison Bader. There is no question about it, both offensively and defensively. And he's continued to be a spark plug for this team down towards the bottom of the lineup, which allows Bryson Stott to naturally hit 9th, which allows guys like Edmundo Sosa, when he plays, to hit in that 6 or 8 spot, depending on how they're going to space out the offense. It allows Harrison Bader himself to hit 7th or 8th. It allows Brandon Marsh to hit 7th or 8th. They can mix and match the bottom 4 in the lineup to their liking, to Rob Thompson's liking, to promote as much efficiency as they possibly can. Harrison Bader's been electric. He's kind of that spark plug guy. I don't know if he's, it's not to say he's their best player. It's not to say he's their most important player. It's not to say that he is the guy that I expect to be that dude come postseason time. But what I know is the Phillies have been really good with Harrison Bader in the lineup. And Harrison Bader, in turn, has been really good for the Phillies in their lineup. That, to me, on Monday, was as impressive of a win as we've seen all year. They've scored more runs. They've shut out teams. They've had more, maybe, complete individual performances, right? Kyle Schwarber's 4-home run night. Christopher Sanchez, complete game. Zach Wheeler, stud performances in the early portions of the season. Jesus Luzardo early in the year. Ranger Suarez in the middle portion of the year. They've gotten timely hitting in the past. That felt like the most gut check win of the season, and I think a lot of people would agree. That was a really good win against a really good Brewers team. And oh yeah, by the way, the 2 runs that they scored in the 9th came against a reliever who had a 1.6 ERA heading into that appearance. Abner Uribe's been awesome. I know they lost Taylor McGill. Taylor? Which one is it? We'll check back. I know they lost McGill. I apologize. I think it's Taylor McGill. I think Tyler McGill is with the Mets. I know they've lost McGill, for a stretch, right? But that bullpen is still really, really good. Shelby Miller is going to be important to their stretch run. As we mentioned, Uribe's nasty. Jared Koenig has nasty stuff as well. That's a really good win against a good bullpen and a good bullpen piece specifically. And oh yeah, by the way, Jacob Mizorowski started the game. Nasty stuff from him. They did enough to get to keep in the game against him, and then they chipped away against a good bullpen, and they scored 2 runs late. That was as gut check of a win as you could possibly get from this team. All right, that is our big deal segment of the day. Of course, brought to you by our friends over at Cherry Hill Mitsubishi. You're looking for the most affordable 7-passenger SUV in America. CherryHillMitsubishi.com has you covered with the 2025 Mitsubishi Outlander. All right, on the other side, we're going to talk about the upcoming game tonight against the Brewers because it's one starting pitcher in particular the Phillies have struggled against, and it's Jose Quintana. We'll talk about why he has success and how the Phillies can start to maybe try to figure him out. We'll also talk about in the third segment, our Ace Hardware Temp Check segment, what is one thing that the Phillies can do against any team in Major League Baseball that is going to continue to help them have success. Then we got to talk about Framber Valdez. What is you doing, dude? Why are you showing up your catcher? Why are you doing this? Maybe you did it on purpose. Maybe you didn't. I don't know if I believe you, but we'll talk more about that on the other side. It's the PHLY Phillies podcast. It's brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We are broadcasting live from the Xfinity Lounge, and we will be right back after this. All right, so listen, you know the situation. You're hanging out with your buddies. You're pumped to watch baseball, right? You get into this stretch run. The postseason's right around the corner. You want to head over to a friend's house. They're set up. It's a total mess. Lagging, buffering, switching between apps, trying to find the game. Your friend claims they're a big fan, but you feel like you've been fan-fished. See, if you call yourself a baseball fan, you gotta get Xfinity. It is the ultimate sports destination. You can find all the best games and your favorite teams all in one place. And the why you watch, it's next level. It's the perfect fan flex. You've got all the action right in your living room, plus Xfinity's best picture and sound while enhanced with 4K. It's so clear you're going to feel like you are at the ballpark. Sometimes you got 4 games on at once. You got the quad box. That's the way to go. I do that with college football all the time, but you can do it with baseball as well. On top of that, you get real-time notifications and live stats right on your TV. It is the best seat in the house every single time. Next game, make sure that big fan isn't a big fail. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. Restrictions do apply. Multi-view requires Xfinity 4K capable TV box. Again, Xfinity.com for all of the information. All right, let me tell you about our friends over at Bet365 because whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And find out why 90 million users worldwide have been able to live stream 780,000 events across 78 different sports each and every year. But what are they known for? They are the pioneers of live in-game betting. Man, what a roller coaster we went on Monday. You could have gotten different lines and different odds at different times. But if your hometown team, you loved them to win that game on Monday, they were down 4-0 and 5-1. You would have gotten great odds on the live in-game betting. You could have done that with our friends over at Bet365. And how about this? New customers now get $200 back in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Here's what you're going to do. Sign up, use the code PHLY365, deposit $10, place a bet for just $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Those bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and so much more. You find out why, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast. Tyler Zulli here. And You, of course. Hello to everybody in the chat. Want to say hello to our friends here. We have, let me get to the chat real quick. Chris Slem, I see. Elephant in the Room. K-Red, Dante, everybody. Markel Futz. Thank you all for being a part of today's show. I really appreciate you all. Again, you can check out our fundraiser with Big Brother, Big Sister here in the live YouTube page as well. Thank you so much if you have the opportunity to donate. If you don't, totally understand. But you can also sign up if you got some free time. Maybe you don't have the money, but you got the time. You can sign up to be a big brother or a big sister. Those signups go a long way, and it is the backbone of what big brothers and big sisters do. All right, let's get into our segment surrounding Jose Quintana. Jose Quintana is a dude that feels like has had the Phillies number pretty much his entire career. Let's take a look at Jose Quintana's numbers this season, and then we'll talk about his numbers this year. So far this year, Jose Quintana's made 21 starts, a 3.69 ERA, just over 114, just shy of 115 innings pitched. Not a strikeout pitcher, has really never been a strikeout pitcher throughout his career, just the 77 strikeouts. Good walk numbers. Good walk numbers. I wouldn't say his walk rate's great, but good, just 43 walks. A 1.29 whip because he does give up a lot of hits, and this is his 14th start this year against the Phillies. Now, before we drop this graphic, there is one thing I want you to take a look at. It is a lot of blue on the Baseball Savant page, and the expected numbers for Jose Quintana, I would say more times than not in his pitching career, are worse than what his actual numbers are. This year, as we said, a 3.69 ERA, an expected ERA of 5.21. Last year, 3.75. His expected ERA, 4.5. The year before, 3.5, expected ERA, 4.5. You get the point. Jose Quintana does more with less than most pitchers across Major League Baseball. And he is a kind of, I don't want to call him a junk baller. That's not fair, but maybe junk baller is the right term to use. 5-pitch pitcher, heavy sinker, just about 90.5 miles an hour. So he's not going to blow you away with velocity, but he goes sinker, change, curve, four seam, slurve he's added this year for about 8% of the time. And what he really does well is just keep hitters off balance. He doesn't throw hard. He's in the 6th percentile of fastball velocity. He doesn't generate a lot of whiff, just 17.6%. He doesn't strike out a lot of hitters, 15.8%. All of those numbers are within the 10th percentile or worse, but he just kind of keeps you on your toes. He's that savvy vet who can throw any of those 5 pitches. He'll throw them for strikes. He'll throw them in any count, and he's not shy of contact, right? Every single year, Jose Quintana's career, he has had a max exit velocity of 112 miles an hour or more. And in fact, in years past, he's been in the bottom 10 percentile multiple times of that max average exit velocity. So he's not afraid to pitch to contact. He's just the type of guy who will pitch backwards. He'll throw breaking balls in fastball counts. He'll throw fastballs in breaking ball counts. And he does a really good job of keeping you on your toes. And why does that bother the Phillies? Because the Phillies swing and chase a lot, right? The Phillies seemingly have success at times with guys with velocity. Now, certain players struggle with velocity. It's a known quantity. Bryson Stott struggles with velocity. At times, Brandon Marsh can struggle with velocity. But Kyle Schwarber swings a quick bat, has never struggled with fastballs. Bryce Harper swings a quick bat, has never struggled with fastballs. A lot of times, the guys that give the Phillies fits are these goofy, junk baller, pitch backwards type of lefties, right? Jose Quintana, Andrew Heaney, those type of guys who really aren't afraid to mix it up, aren't afraid to attack hitters on their hands, down and away, mix things up. And so why does Jose Quintana get after you, and how does he get after you, despite the fact that his strikeout rates have routinely been under 20% over the last 3 seasons, despite the fact that his expected ERAs have consistently been worse than his actual ERAs each and every season, despite the fact that his barrel rates have been at almost a career high at 9% this year? How does this guy have a 3.69 ERA? Well, it's because a multitude of factors. But before we get and we'll talk about that in just a second, but how has this guy, let's do that first, and then we'll talk about his numbers against the Phillies. Let's take a look at 5 heat maps as to why Jose Quintana has success. And I apologize, these are small, but you get the point. What does he do well? The first thing Jose Quintana does well, and the first thing he wants to do, is that top left box. He wants to keep the ball down, and not only down in the zone, below the zone. 38% of the pitches that Jose Quintana has thrown this year have been below the zone. And in fact, as a lefty, you see that 23%, he wants to pound that glove side out of the zone, down in the zone, right? Or excuse me, that arm side down in the zone, down in the zone. And what he wants to do is run the sinker in on the hands of lefties and run the breaking balls on away from righties, especially the changeup away from righties, which is a pitch that he has used almost exclusively to righties. And in fact, he's thrown it 416 times. He's thrown it 402 times to right-handed hitters. He's used the changeup and the curveball exclusively to righties, and he uses the slurve exclusively to lefties, that traditional run away from you lefty breaking ball. But you see, he wants to pitch down in the zone. And why does he do that? Well, the next two boxes are the most important as to why he does that. This is where he generates his biggest amount of whiff. They see the 43% glove side, right? Glove side meaning his right hand, meaning towards the away from lefties and into righties. That's where he's generating the most whiff, and he's using the slurve to do that. His slurve is his most generated whiff pitch at 27.4%, and it's why it's his second most generated put away pitch at 16.1%. But he's also able to get a good amount of whiff down and away with the changeup, which is his about 20% of his whiffs, down and away with the changeup to righties. You see most of his whiffs come to you down in the zone, whether it's lefty-lefty down and away or lefty-righty down and away with the changeup. You see the whiffs are what he's able to do. This is how he pounds the lower portions of the zone and below to get to that point. The next one on that list, I think, is a critical one as well. Jose Quintana wants you to beat the ball into the ground. He wants to generate ground ball rates at a solid amount, and you see it. 57% ground ball rate when the ball gets batted in play, down and away to lefties, down and into righties. 55% down and away to righties, down and into lefties. But even down in that lower third quadrant of the actual zone, 50% down and away to lefties specifically. That also is running the sinker on the hands, but back off the hands into the zone to righties. But his ground ball rates are successful when he keeps the ball down. And then the last two right there, and thank you, Bree, I appreciate it. Bree, by the way, producing today's show. Shout out to Bree for engineering today's show. The average exit velocity for Jose Quintana is at its best, with the exception of course, way up and away, is at its best when he keeps the ball down. 80 miles an hour on average exit velocity, down and away to lefties, 82 miles an hour down and away to righties. And he's able to generate a 115 batting average and a 118 batting average in those spots. Much like many pitchers, but specifically, much like many pitchers that don't throw particularly hard, this guy gets hit when he leaves the ball over the heart of the plate. Right, obvious, pretty obvious for any pitcher, but anybody that doesn't throw hard, that becomes a nitro zone pitch. That becomes a belt-high fastball that Kyle Schwarber wants to obliterate into the second deck. That becomes a belt-high fastball that JT Realmuto wants to put into the gap for a double. Those are the pitches that he tries to get away with, and you notice he doesn't generate a lot of whiff, in the middle of the zone. He doesn't want to pitch in the middle of the zone. In fact, just 7% in the middle of the zone, and for good reason. His ground ball rates go down. The batting average is .432 when he goes middle. Jose Quintana wants to keep you off balance, and the way that he does it is to go slurve down and away to lefties and change up down and away to righties. And he's going to use those pitches in any given spot. And that's how he is allowed to run the sinker back on the hands to or run the sinker off the hands to righties and run it back on the hands to lefties, because when you start looking down, that's when he can pitch back up with the velocity, even if it's not a lot of velocity, averaging about 90 to 91 miles an hour. So let's take a look at Jose Quintana's numbers against the Phillies. And everything I just laid out is why Jose Quintana has success against the Phillies. In years past, Trey Turner has swung and missed and chased at a lot from Jose Quintana. Nick Castellanos, the same thing. I would bet, I didn't take a look at Nick Castellanos' numbers specifically against him. I would bet you they're probably not very good, just off my thought. But here's his numbers against the Phillies. He's made 13 starts. Surprisingly, he's only 1-2. But he has a 3.53 ERA and 71 and a third innings pitched. His strikeouts just above one strikeout per inning pitched, which is significantly lower than his career average. His WHIP is better than his career average at 1.17. He's striking out at almost 10 per 9, and his strikeout to walk ratio is 3.71. Now let's dive into some of those numbers a little bit further. His strikeout per 9 ratio of 9.8 is the second best against any team he's faced in his major league career. The only team that has struck out more per 9 against Quintana are the Chicago White Sox. His 3.71 strikeout to walk ratio is the 5th best against any team that he has faced over his career. The Phillies, in his time against Quintana, are slashing .233, 300, 337, 637. The 337 slug is the 3rd worst of any team in Major League Baseball. Now let's go back to 2024 for just a second. He made 4 starts against the Phillies, including the one in the postseason. He pitched 21 innings. He gave up just 5 earned runs. It's a 2.14 ERA. He gave up 15 hits. He also struck out 15. And so far in 2025, 5 innings pitched, 2 earned runs against the Phillies. So overall, Jose Quintana has done a masterful job of keeping the Phillies hitters off balance and guessing. And if they don't kind of have a more precise approach against Quintana tonight, you'll see more of it. And I'm not sitting here telling you I think outright the Phillies are going to lose. They faced this guy enough. They're veteran. It's a veteran-laden lineup. But I do think that Quintana has had the Phillies number for a couple of different reasons. And primarily speaking, it's because they like to chase a lot. Their chase rates as a collective unit at times have not been good. And I think that, you know, if you have a situation where you go about attacking Quintana the way that you have over the last 2 seasons, he's going to get you again. And so I think the easiest way to go about this is, how do you battle Quintana? Make him throw strikes. Make him come to you. Make him pitch into the zone. Make him uncomfortable in spots that he normally feels comfortable in. He's a vet. He's been around a long time. He's never really had velocity, so it's not like it's a guy who, you know, over the course of his career has lost that velocity. Like Taijuan Walker, for example, had velocity and had to learn how to pitch without it, right? He's kind of learned how to become a heavy cutter overlay guy, sinker splitter type of guy who doesn't throw as hard as he used to. Going all the way back to 2017 for Jose Quintana, when he was more of a fastball pitcher than a sinker pitcher. He averaged 92.2 miles an hour on his fastball. This year, 90.4 on the fastball, 90.5 on the sinker. So it's not like it's a guy who's ever thrown overly hard, but he's known how to command the strike zone. He knows how to attack you. He knows how to work backwards. And I think there is a reason that we spent so much time talking about Jose Quintana, because he's been a thorn in the Phillies' side for the last 2 seasons, whether it was with the Mets last year or with the Brewers now. This is his second start against the Phillies with the Brewers. And listen, there's a very realistic chance that the Phillies and Brewers meet up at some point in the postseason, whether it's in a DS, because the Phillies finished 3rd and they end up playing, you know, the Brewers in some capacity, or it's a CS because they're 1-2 and they meet up in the NLCS. There's a chance that the Phillies could meet the Brewers in the postseason. And if the Phillies meet the Brewers in the postseason, the likely scenario is Freddie Peralta pitches game 1, and then you either go Quintana, Miz 2-3, or Miz Quintana 2-3. But you're probably going to see Jose Quintana in the postseason at some point. This is an opportunity tonight to show that you've changed your approach against this guy who's had your number for the better part of 2 seasons now. All right, that's a deep dive on Jose Quintana, who's pitching against the Aaron Nola tonight. Aaron Nola gets the ball for the Phils. And then the series wraps up tomorrow, of course. 7:40 start tonight, and then a 4:10 start tomorrow, which is good, by the way. A 4:10 start tomorrow is good for all of us here, because that means we basically roll from the Phillies right into the Eagles, who will have a late start, of course, because they kickstart the season on Thursday night. So if you're a Philly sports junkie, If you can't get enough of it, it's going to be a really fun day. Phillies at 4. That game will probably end somewhere right around 7. I guess you can spend some time with your family if you're into that kind of thing. Hanging out with your family and friends. You could do that for an hour, and then you get right back into the Eagles. All right. Let's pause on the other side. We're going to get into our Ace Hardware temp check segment, and it's one thing in particular that I think the Phillies can do to just about any team in Major League Baseball, and they can have success doing it. That's our temp check segment. And then, of course, as it was brought up in the chat below, we'll have to talk about what happened with Framber Valdez last night to wrap up today's show. It's the PHLY Phillies podcast. We're broadcasting live from the Xfinity Lounge. We are, of course, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We will be right back after this. All right, you got an outlet that you said you were going to fix for a year now. I am the ultimate procrastinator, and I also don't have any skill set when it comes to fixing things around the house. So if it's something like an outlet, I got to call somebody. But if it's something bigger, right? Plumbing, heating, electric, cooling, don't do it if you're not a pro. Listen, trust me, I don't want to try to get into that kind of stuff. We had to fix an outlet at my house, had to call my father-in-law. He's much more handy. But if I didn't have him, I would have called the pros at Ace Hardware and Ace Hardware Home Services. Because whether it's heating, plumbing, cooling, electric, they've got the trusted pros that keep your home humming all season long. We're getting into the fall months, which means maybe the AC is going to start going off soon, but the heat's going to come on. At some point in October, November, we get into the winter months. Don't go without heating. If it's sputtering, just like warm air, stale air, call our friends over at Ace Hardware and Ace Hardware Home Services because they bring experience, understanding, and of course, the helpful hardware folks feel right to your front door. It's service you can trust and satisfaction that is guaranteed. And of course, our friends at Ace Hardware, they're local. They live and work in your community, and they want to make sure that their friends, their neighbors, their homes are humming all year long. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project. All right, let me tell you about our friends over at Game Time. Yes, as the season turns to fall, there are just 25 games left for your hometown baseball club. So if you want to get in on those games or you want to get in on the postseason tickets, you can do it with our friends at Game Time. They give the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing tickets and, of course, amazing experiences in just a few taps. Because why? It's incredibly easy to use. The Game Time app means you can trust it 100% to get authentic tickets on time and at the best price. What's my favorite thing about the Game Time app? The 3D seat map, of course. Listen, if you've been to CBP before, you kind of know where you're sitting. Maybe you don't need it. But what if you want to take a road trip? You still have Milwaukee. You still have Miami. You still have a couple of different spots. West Coast trip coming up, right? LA and Arizona. Maybe you don't know where you're going to sit. Use the 3D seat map to find exactly where you're going to sit, know exactly what your sight lines look like. Can you see the scoreboard? Can you see can you see all parts of the field? Are you obstructed by a pole or the foul pole or a weird seat? Don't worry about that with the Game Time app. Use the 3D map to find out exactly where you're going to sit. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the app today, create an account, use the code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code PHLY for $20 off. Tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast. Tyler Zulli here. Big thank you to everybody in the chat. We really appreciate you. We're going to get to the Framber Valdez thing in just a second, but there's a couple of people I haven't had a chance. They've joined the show recently, haven't had a chance to say hello to. G. Shields, Elephant in the Room, John Peace, Peter Tom Willis. Thank you all for being a part of the show. If you don't mind, before you get out of here, hit that thumbs up button. Takes 2 seconds to do. Really helps us in the algorithm, really helps us keep our lights on. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscription button on the way out as well. Bree, I think we're closing in on almost 49,000, right? Or getting close to it. I think our goal, my personal goal was 50K by the end of the year.
We can get there.
I think we're going to get there.
We are so close.
That would be a huge goal for us because, listen, we started as a startup, pseudo startup company back in September of 2023. So to get to 50,000 subscribers just as we're about to hit our 2-year anniversary would be really, really cool. So if you're not subscribed, if you don't mind, it takes 2 seconds. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to pay for it. There's no pay for play, right? This isn't a subscription base. You can become a diehard if you want to get in on more content, but subscribing on YouTube is free, and it's the best way for us to keep our lights on. Really, really appreciate you all for doing so. All right, let's get into our Ace Hardware Temp Check segment, which, of course, is brought to you by our friends over at Ace Hardware and Ace Hardware Home Services. Check out acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project today. Listen, it's not a particular player that's heating up or cooling down, but it's one thing that I noticed, and I noticed it on Monday, and I noticed it on Thursday when the Phillies played the Braves, and I've noticed it basically really since the trade deadline. And I don't want to say it's entirely due in part to the acquisition of Harrison Bader, because they've had players on the roster prior to this, but what Harrison Bader does is add to this conversation. I've been thinking about a lineup, a postseason lineup recently, that includes, especially against the lefty. Now, I'm going to put this caveat. One of the two guys has to face a hand that they're not used to facing. And one of the two guys I mean are either Bryson Stott or Edmundo Sosa. But I've been thinking about a starting lineup particularly against the lefty, where Edmundo Sosa starts at third, Bryson Stott starts at second. Trey Turner naturally starts at short. Harrison Bader is in center, and Brandon Marsh is in left. Now, maybe this works a little bit better against a righty, and you're just having to hope that Edmundo Sosa puts some good swings against a righty. We know Sosa's much better against left-handed pitching than he is against right-handed pitching. But I've been thinking about a starting lineup in the rest of the regular season and into the postseason that could include Sosa, Stott, Bader, Marsh, Turner. Why have I been thinking about this lineup? Because this lineup would freaking wreak havoc on the bases. And this is where our Ace Hardware Temp Check segment comes into play today. This lineup and its sprint speed would be a huge help for the Phillies, because I think being able to steal bags and being able to go first to third, being able to go second to home, being able to go first to home and a ball hit in the gap is such a difference maker for a team, because it doesn't matter who you're facing. It doesn't matter if you're facing a hard thrower, a soft tosser. It doesn't matter if you're facing a lefty or a righty. But if you have the capability of stealing bags, if you have the capability of basically saying, bleep you, get us out, situationally, of course, that poses such a threat to so many different teams. It poses a threat to teams with good starters. It poses a threat to teams with good bullpens. It poses a threat to teams who can score runs and those who trust their pitching more than that. This team has an opportunity to just go out there and crush you on the bases. Now, let's take a look at why they can do this. This is the Phillies sprint speed, their top 4 sprint speeds, based on a minimum of 50 opportunities. And there on the right, you see numbers 1 through 20 in Major League Baseball to kind of get an idea of where some of these guys sit. Now, Johan Rojas is in that conversation. He's not going to be there, obviously. He's not going to be on the Major League roster or on the postseason roster, but obviously you know he can run the bases. But Trey Turner is number 1 in all of Major League Baseball, better than Victor Scott, better than Bobby Witt Jr., who is one of the most terrifying baseball players on the bases, better than Ellie De La Cruz, better than Ronald Acuna Jr. All of these guys, he's better than. Chandler Simpson, who is going to be one of the elite base stealers, better than Pete Crow Armstrong, who's an elite base runner. The point is, Trey Turner stands atop that list at a top sprint speed of 30.3 miles an hour. And then within the top 60, just of minimum attempts, Edmundo Sosa, 29.5. He's ranked 17th. Harrison Bader, 28.8. He's ranked 52nd. Bryson Stott, just a tenth of a mile slower than Harrison Bader at top sprint speed, 28.7. He's ranked 59th. All of this is to say, if these 4 guys can contribute at the postseason level by simply getting on base, easier said than done, of course, but the expectation is Trey Turner's going to do it. The expectation is if Edmundo Sosa starts against the lefty, he should do it. If Bryson Stott starts against the righty, he should do it. Harrison Bader can do it against both sides of the plate. We've seen him over the last month. This offense has an opportunity from top to bottom. Trey Turner hitting ninth to Bryson Stott, or Trey Turner hitting first to Bryson Stott hitting ninth, with Bader and Sosa. And let's not forget, JT's a pretty good base runner himself. Bryce Harper may be over-aggressive at times, but an aggressive base runner willing to take the extra bag. Maybe not the fleetest of foot, but a good enough base runner to get it done. Outside of Nick Castellanos, outside of Alec Boehm, and outside of Kyle Schwarber, this team has the potential to send 6 guys at any given night to the plate who could stretch a single into a double, who can stretch a double into a triple, who can go first to third, who can take the extra base, who can swipe a bag, who could score from second on a base hit, who can score from first on a ball hit into the gap. That's a difference maker for this team. That is an unsung piece of this team that means something to its success. Bryson Stott is an elite base stealer. Trey Turner is an elite base stealer. Edmundo Sosa and Harrison Bader have the chance to be really good base runners. This team could cause problems on the bases. And when you have a pitcher who has to think about those base runners on any given situation, think about Trey Turner stealing second. Think about Bryson Stott stealing second. Think about Edmundo Sosa going first to third on a hit and run. Think about Harrison Bader going first to third on an executed hit and run. It starts to creep doubt into your mind, especially with the disengagement rule, especially with the fact that if you throw over twice and you don't get that guy, if you throw over a third time and he's safe, you just balked him over to second. You just put a runner in scoring position. You got to be really specific and really definitive with your move over to first base if you're trying to get these guys. How do you hold runners on that can steal bases flat out, like Turner and Stott, that can steal bases flat out when you got to think about a pitch clock, when you got to think about not disengaging too many times, when you got to think about not allowing those guys to get into your head while you still have to get the batter ahead of you out? And that's why with Bryson Stott hitting ninth, if he in a perfect world, Bryson Stott hits ninth, like in an absolute perfect lineup where you can go Turner, Schwarber, Harper. I know JT's not your typical 4-hole, but I think it's going to be JT. If that's your top 4, and then you can see a 5, 6, 7 or a 5, 6 that includes probably one of Boehm or Castellanos, right? More likely not than Boehm hitting 5th. And then somewhere from 6 to 9, you go Marsh, Bader, Stott, Casty, Kepler, Sosa. You know, you're picking 4 of like 7 guys to fill that bottom 4. If Bryson Stott can naturally hit 9th, if Brandon Marsh can hit 7th and Bader hits 8th, or Marsh hits 6th and Bader hits 7th, Sosa hits 8th, right? You're mixing and matching these guys. You're going to have a lot of foot speed on the bases. And if you start to, if you're an opposing pitcher and you start to clog the bases up with these guys, and Bryson Stott's able to naturally turn the order over for Turner, Schwarber, Harper, JT, that's not. It becomes a much deeper lineup. It becomes you don't want to have to It's never a good time to get the 9-hole hitter on base. It really becomes a bad time when Bryson Stott's the 9-hole hitter and you bring it back to the top of the lineup with Turner, Schwarber, Harper, with Bryson Stott on first base. The speed of this team could be super, super specific and exciting and a huge catalyst for this team down the stretch. G Shields, thanks so much for that super chat for Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Really appreciate you for being a part of that. Thank you so much for that. That was very, very kind of you. All right, that is our Ace Hardware temp check segment of the day. Head on over to acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project. On the other side, I've been teasing it long enough. We got to get into this Framber Valdez thing, and we'll wrap up today's show here on the PHLY Phillies podcast with a look ahead to the rest of the week. And the question, Framber, what are you doing? What are you doing, man? Even if you didn't mean to do it, optically, it's a bad look. We'll talk more about it on the other side. It's the PHLY Phillies podcast. We're broadcasting. Oh, excuse me. My goodness. Take two. I can't breathe. What a mess. Man, all right. Get it together, Tyler. We are broadcasting live from the Xfinity Lounge here on the PHLY studios. It is the PHLY Phillies podcast brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We'll be right back after this. Yeah, we're good. Thank you. All right. Let me tell you about our friends over at Cherry Hill Mitsubishi. Listen, if you're looking for the most affordable 7-passenger SUV in America, I told you already earlier in the show, but I'll tell you again. I keep telling you, P. Sherman 42, Wallaby Way, Sydney. That's my second Disney reference of the day, I think. Clearly, I have a 10-month-old at home, and that's all we watch is Disney and Bluey. Let me tell you about our friends over at Cherry Hill and CherryHillMitsubishi.com because of the 7-passenger SUV, which is the 2025 Mitsubishi Outlander. Take advantage of their incredible 0% 60-month APR financing for PA residents only. That means 0% is unbelievable. For 60 months APR, you can walk away not worrying about it for 60 months. Keep making those payments, of course, but you get an incredible APR financing, or take home the 2024 Mitsubishi Outlander with payments starting at $55 a week with zero down retail. Now, that offer is not valid with trade-in appraisal. An offer is subject to credit approval by a third party. Not all applicants may apply, but if you combine all of those incredible offers with the best warranty in the automotive business, 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain, and 5-year, 60,000-mile bumper to bumper. Why settle for less when you're going to be on the hook for costly repairs down the road? Stop in today, tell them PHLY sent you, and receive a $100 restaurant.com gift card just for taking a test drive or completing a trade-in appraisal. Listen, I know people buy Mitsubishis elsewhere. I just don't know why. Drive home in your new Mitsubishi today, just minutes from all bridges, or available online at 24/7. Available online 24/7 at CherryHillMitsubishi.com. All right, let me tell you about one of my favorite companies. It is Shady Rays. You know that moment, the one where you realize you're having a great time. Summer's coming to an end, but you might still need your shades. You're at the amusement park, the ballpark, the beach. Maybe you just took them off to go inside to get gas. You put them on the roof of your car. You realize you're 3 states away and your shades are gone. Don't worry about it with Shady Rays because they offer the best protection in all of eyewear. It is a incredible lost, damaged, broken replacement guarantee. And they're not going to break the bank. They're not stupid expensive, and they look great. Polarized lenses, crystal clear optics, durable frames. So if you worry about a scratch or a ding or dropping them, don't worry. The likelihood is they're going to be fine. And again, we're pairing up with our friends over at Shady Rays, so you don't have to worry about that fear of losing them at the concert or at hikes or on a boat or whatever. It's the eyewear company that has your back. Head on over to ShadyRays.com. Use the code PHLY for 35% off a pair of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades that are rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right. Welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast. Lively chat today. Really appreciate you all for being a part of it. Thank you so much. We are here for just another couple of minutes, and I want to get into the final thing for today before we get out of here. And I said it a couple times, but I have to reiterate it. Framber Valdez, what are you doing, man? Listen, intentional, not. Your body language and your optics were not good. It looks bad. It is just a bad look for you. All right, so I've been teasing this enough. So those that maybe didn't see it or don't know what happened, you just hear me talking about Framber Valdez over and over again. Last night, Framber Valdez was pitching against the Yankees. Bases loaded. It was a 2-0 game, and Trent Grisham was at the plate. Now, the situation kind of unfolded strangely to begin. But Framber Valdez and his catcher were trying to go through the signs, obviously. And then right before Framber Valdez got set, his catcher, who yesterday was Cesar Salazar, puts his hands up. Says, step off, step off, step off. Must have seen something, or pitch clock timer was getting down, or whatever it might have been. Tries to get him to step off. Framber goes through his windup and ends up throwing what looks like a running two-seam or a sinker, pretty much middle. Trent Grisham obliterates it, sends it into the Crawford boxes, and all of a sudden, this 2-0 game becomes 6-0. Trent Grisham rounding the bases, kind of trying to keep from laughing. You can see he knows he got a great pitch to hit, and he took advantage of it, and he sends it into the Crawford boxes for a grand slam, and all of a sudden, the 2-0 game goes to 6-0. So Framber Valdez clearly has a little bit of a mope, a little bit of a pout face on. Not happy with his catcher, I guess, for trying to call time in the middle of his windup. So Anthony Volpe is up next. And Volpe gets a pitch right down the middle of the plate. And it was 93, which is not as hard as Framber throws. But Framber kind of just real quick goes through the motions. Fastball 93 middle. And it looks to the eye that Cesar Salazar was not looking for this pitch. I don't know if he got crossed up. I don't know if this was intentional. But it looked like he was looking for something down because the fastball pretty much hit him in the chest protector. And I don't know if it caught him in the glove or the wrist or it did hit him in the chest protector. But the big problem with this is, optically, Framber Valdez immediately turns his back to his catcher, has this sour look on his face, basically says, bleep you, bleep this. It feels like he very much did this on purpose. And Cesar Salazar, to his credit, kind of throws the mask up, steps out back to, kind of takes a couple of steps back to Framber Valdez, throws him the ball back, and goes back to his position. But you can see it in his face. Salazar is pissed. And I don't blame the guy, because this looks to me, at least from the video that you're seeing, it looks to me like a pitcher who is showing up his catcher in the middle of an inning, in the middle of an at-bat, in the middle of a game. You can't have that happen. It just cannot happen. This felt to me like some of the worst teammate optics I've seen in a long time. Listen, whether you did it intentionally or not. Now, Framber said after the game, they got crossed up. It wasn't intentional. It was a mix-up in signs. A lot of the look on this doesn't scream cross-up. This looks like just from the facial expression and the body language, this screamed, I'm doing this to show my catcher up. And I got to be honest with you, it looks to me like he was trying to show Salazar up. Not only is this stupid, it's dangerous. Obviously, he's wearing chest protector. He hit him in the chest protector. But it's just a dangerous thing. And this is the situation where I think if you're a pitcher and you don't like what your catcher did, if you're a pitcher and you're not happy with what your teammates did. Listen, if you've pitched at any level, you have been mad and frustrated with your teammates at some point. Botch a routine ground ball, not in the right spot, make a bad play, a blunder. You have to have that stoicism to at least get back to the dugout before you have the conversation. If you want to have a fight with your catcher after this, take it up the tunnel. Take it into the dugout and up the tunnel and give him a piece of your mind. Tell him how you're feeling and tell him why you're pissed off at what just happened and have that conversation and do it man-to-man, face-to-face, but take it up the tunnel. There are cameras everywhere. You just showed up your teammate in the middle of a game. It's not like the camera panned into the dugout. It's not like the camera, was in the bullpen or caught them walking off the field. You showed up your teammate on the field. You can call it for what it is. This is a bad look for you, Framber. You want to tell me you didn't do it on purpose? Fine. I guess I have to take your word for it, but I don't believe you. I don't think a lot of people believe you. That was just a bad look. And I think it's one of those, like, I don't want to call it an unwritten rule, but I do think there's listen, baseball is flooded with unwritten rules. But one of the unwritten rules is you do your best to not show your teammates up in the middle of the field, in the middle of an inning. If you got to have a conversation, take it up the tunnel, take it in the dugout, have it in the clubhouse, whatever it's got to be a private conversation. You do not show your teammates up in the middle of the field. That sure looked like Framber Valdez was showing his teammate up in the middle of the field. All right, and that's going to wrap up today's show. Big thank you to everybody in the chat today, from Markel Futz to Peelin' Onions, Elephant in the Room, G Shields, Chris Slem, K Red. Try to scroll back. I'm going to try to scroll back here real quick. Who else was here? Peelin' Onions, John Peace, Elephant in the Room, Peter Tom Willis. really appreciate you all. If I didn't get a chance to name you personally, know I appreciate you. Know I'm thank you for you all being here. And of course, a big thank you to Bree for producing today's show, because Bree has to get set up for the Sixers in about an hour and run another show. So a huge thank you to you, Bree, for producing today's show and engineering as well. We'll be back on Friday afternoon to wrap up this Brewers series, to get you set for the Marlins series this weekend. No overtime today, Provolone John. I got to get, Bree has to get the Sixers set up, so I want to try to get out of here as soon as possible. But no overtime today. You can text me your thoughts or tweet me your thoughts if you want to talk about something else. I'll respond to you on Twitter. We can do that. But a big thank you to everybody in the chat, and a big thank you for everybody that's watched along, whether it be live or after the show ends or listens to us on the audio podcast platform. Again, we'll be back on Friday at 1 o'clock for the next installment of the PHLY Philly Show. Until that time, big thank you to you all. Enjoy the rest of the series against the Brewers, and we'll talk to you on Friday right here on the PHLY Phillies podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We'll see you at Friday at 1 right here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. Talk to you then.
We all silly like the mayor.